Hi everyone, it's Elizabeth from Elpis Astrology at elpisastrology.com. Thanks for joining me today. So today I am going to do the whole of March from the standpoint of an astrological forecast, and individually I will be doing each of your sun signs and or ascendants. So I will put a timestamp in for each of the ascendants so you can go directly to what is happening with regards to you specifically. So when we look at March 2022, we can really say that there's going to be some big changes in March for sure. So that if things have been stuck for you and not moving forward, this is the month where you're actually going to be able to see that the changes are starting to happen, and they're probably going to happen pretty rapidly too. So we start off on the 2nd of March 2022 with our new moon in Pisces, and it'll be at 12 degrees Pisces, 7 minutes, at 9:34 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will also have Mars in Capricorn going over Venus to connect with Pluto in Capricorn. So essentially having a Mars-Venus-Pluto conjunction. This is extremely powerful. Now when we have Mars and Venus together, typically we're talking about the celestial lovers. But here I think we're talking about males and females that are in traditional institutions working to transform things. Of course, the transformation comes through Pluto. So I would say this is really intense behind the scenes efforts by those people in power in our institutions, really putting great change into place. And I would expect to actually see that in the real world. That's not just going to be, we hope it's happening type of thing, and then we hear about it later. We're actually going to hear and see announcements about things with regards to change. So we then have on the 3rd of March, this whole Venus specifically does conjunct Pluto on her own. So even though Mars is still hovering around, we now have the diplomatic Venus conjuncting with the transformation. And I thought this was more with regards to peace or peaceful type activities, diplomatic type of activities, but probably through a woman. So we may have a woman rising here that brings great diplomacy to the world, and of course specifically to other places in the world that are potentially big hotspots right now. On the 5th of March, we have the Sun conjuncting Jupiter in Pisces at 14 degrees of Pisces. Now on the 19th of March, Mercury will come up to this point too. And I think what this is going to be all about is news literally about our waters, our ocean. And I think a lot more is going to come out with this whole Jupiter in Pisces. We literally have more concern with our waters. We're going to have more things like flooding. So certainly in March, you can look out for things like that. I would, if individually you've got this prominent in your chart, literally be looking for things regarding water in your home. If there's anything that is dripping or potentially could have some kind of problems with water, I would get it resolved. This is a pretty big effect here. On the 7th of March, we have an interesting transit that's happening. And I thought this was sort of a turning point for March. Even though it's just the 7th of March, we have Venus still conjuncting Mars, but it's now at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So now Venus and Mars take on a completely different hue with regards to what they mean. And I'll get to that in a second. But the important point is that this transit actually conjuncts the same degree point, 0 degrees and some minutes, Aquarius, that we had in December 2020. Where we had a whole new 20-year cycle happen or start with both Jupiter and Saturn. And this is of significance too. So this really gives, from my standpoint, it gives a buy-in. So even though the actual transit, the 20-year cycle started in December 2020, with this conjunction of Venus and Mars at the same degree point, it really now says that literally men and women joining together in humanitarian needs, humanitarian type of action. There's going to be a lot more intellectual type things going on, and I would not be surprised if we have some major scientific not just a discovery, but scientific discoveries sort of started around the 7th of March, and I would say continuing the whole way through March as well. But this is tied into the cycle of the 20 years, so we're going to see lots of new things happening, certainly in the next 20 years with regards to science and literally outer space. Now, Pluto will reach this point on the 1st of March, 2023. And of course, then that's that slow-moving transformational energy where it more incorporates the world in what's going on. So we really have another year almost from now with regards to some real visuals of how our world has changed scientifically, intellectually, from a humanitarian standpoint, that sort of thing. So this is a process over the next year as Pluto makes his way up to that same point as well, right? So when we break down this whole Venus-Mars at 0 degrees of Aquarius, let's look at Mars first. So Mars in Aquarius is very dynamic. It can be rebellious and nervously overcharged. Mars, instead of making the action himself, in Aquarius sparks that action. And that's a little different with regards to the action Mars is going to exert as a result of this conjunction of Mars and Venus at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So he sparks that action in others. So you can expect early March and all the way through March, probably lots of rising up, literally, of the people. This is grassroots type thing. These are also intellectuals. You know, if you think back to any newsreels that you saw, say from the 50s and 60s, I'm always amazed when you actually get to witness broadcasters and journalists speaking what they think is the truth, as opposed to having it diluted down and, transformed through the media machine. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that too, where we're going to have on the spot type things where people are going to start speaking the truth, and it's going to get on the airwaves to really help us understand what's going on in this world. But certainly we're going to have literally the people rising and starting to do marches. I don't necessarily see big, out of hand protests here, but I do see the people rising, and it's going to be literally everywhere in the world to transform our society, the way we do things, the way things are meted out, where some people get things, other people don't. There's going to be a real push for equality amongst all of us. So that's Mars. When we look at Venus in Aquarius, Venus idealizes love, but she brings a mental energy along with diplomatic relations, but specifically for humanitarian needs. She's certainly unconventional in Aquarius, and she seeks freedom from the fetters of relationships. And I would say probably around this time, we're going to be seeing literally breakups of relationships too, where people are just going to say, I need my freedom. And there's going to be a lot of that happening here too. But certainly when we look at the fact that really Venus and Mars in conjunction really stayed more in Capricorn before it then went into Aquarius, I really saw this more of Venus distributing the gains, right? The gains that she got in Capricorn. Capricorn's all about rising to the top, gaining power and control, but it's also gaining the goods, the money, right? That's kind of what Venus represents. So she's taking the gains that was made and then distributing that for the next few months as she's sparking off this whole conjunction with Mars and Aquarius and activating that whole 20-year cycle of Jupiter and Saturn. So look for that as well. In fact, perhaps we'll see even announcements where literally money is going to be distributed for humanitarian needs, and not necessarily just because there was some big earthquake or something. There's just going to be more distribution of the money that's out there to others that are in need. All right, so we've got the full moon that's going to be in Virgo on the 18th of March at 12:17 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. at 27 degrees of Virgo, 40 minutes. We're going to have Venus is going to be on her way to conjunct Saturn at this time, so bringing a really important diplomatic message to perhaps put something in writing in the law, to really form some kind of permanent thing with regards to diplomacy. That's what I feel here. And then, of course, Venus will be squaring Uranus, so this could be some upsetting, surprising news over the airways. That's where I saw this, because of course Uranus can represent the airwaves literally. But we do have Venus sextiling Chiron, and certainly in Virgo, with the whole Virgo full moon, Virgo is all about health as well as service to others. So it seems to me that what may happen during this full moon is that we collect all the right information and facts and apply it to this whole health situation that we have that gives us more opportunities to have better health. And so I think this full moon on the 18th of March will mark some kind of turning point with regards to the whole viruses, and give us some really good news with regarding how we're going to get through this. We may, however, with the square, still have some other variant come in to cause continued problems in this area. So on the 21st of March, we have, certainly from an astrological standpoint, we have the beginning of the new year in astrology. I'm specifically talking about Western astrology, of course. And this is when the sun ingresses in at 0 degrees of Aries. So here we have the start of the astrological new year for Western astrologers. Happy New Year, everybody. But it also marks for you, Aries, a time of new beginnings for you as well. Now, what's interesting is this whole effect of whatever turns up in this chart at this time, of course, is going to cover the whole time period for 3 months with regards to influence. So we look at the moon, and the moon is at 29 degrees of Libra, 53 minutes, squaring Pluto. So we can expect that there's going to be some intense, so when we have a 29 degree point anywhere in a chart, we know that there's culminating energies and it tends to become fairly intense. So I would suggest that not only around the 21st of March, but for the next 3 months, we're also going to have an intensification with regards to some kind of diplomacy going on. Libra represents that. It can be the law, so we may actually have the law being laid down as well. And certainly squaring Pluto, there's going to be some kind of resistance with regards to the old guard, right? That's Pluto, that's the people in power. What else could this be? I really got the feeling of laws somehow, that laws, and maybe this is going to go back to, laws being enacted more locally, municipalities doing it, or communities doing it more, as opposed to more federal or state laws, and that there's resistance to those in power, i.e. those in the state and those in the federal government, resisting those. That, I think, intuitively is what this is about. So we may see a lot more big pushes in that area. And again, this is, people seeking peace and harmony and just wanting the best for everybody is what it boils down to. It certainly asks for peace and give peace a chance. So from a mundane standpoint, perhaps that will also be in effect here too. Maybe even the Ukraine under the microscope with regards to peaceful negotiations. We do have Mercury conjuncting Jupiter too, and this gives a lovely energy with regards to, and of course this is going to be in Pisces. So Pisces always seeks out compassion, really tries to hone into how are you feeling, and has this empathetic sort of spiritual sort of hue to your conversations. So I would say that's a nice thing to go along with the intensity that's going to be with regards to the resistance of those in power. But we also have Venus, and it's a wide square, But Venus will be squaring Uranus at this time too. So again, this is that resistance to change, right? And again, I think there's going to be maybe some uprising of women to really try to enact change here. I haven't seen that specifically. I'm not saying women aren't working behind the scenes, but this may bring something more to the forefront where we see women taking more of a role with regards to the change that we need to make in our world. And we'll actually see faces. It's not just going to be some words written about them. All right, so we end the month with a new moon in Aries. So happy new year to you, Aries. It is on the 31st of March at 11:25 p.m. And of course, this is Pacific Daylight Time. Elsewhere, it will be on April Fool's Day, the 1st of April. So at this new moon in Aries, we have the moon at 11 degrees of Aries, 31 minutes. And nicely, this sun and moon, because at every new moon we have the moon and the sun together, will conjunct Chiron. And I thought it was very appropriate that we sort of end March, and in many respects we're kind of ending a season in some ways with this conjuncting Chiron. And this just says, because of course Aries is the start of the zodiac, this is just a whole new start with regards to us healing. So I guess we can look towards the end of March with regards to some real line in the sand that we can say, oh, thank goodness, we're actually going to have better health. And certainly if you've got this anywhere in your chart and you've been suffering from ill health of any sort, this could be a whole new start for you. So we're looking at between 10 and 12 degrees of Aries, say your sun is there or your ascendant or a conglomeration of planets. The other thing we have is Neptune will be sextiling the north nodes of the moon in Taurus. Also really beautiful energy. It's difficult energy to capture unless you're vibrating to a very high level. So Neptune is really speaking to great compassion. It's agape love. It's like, you know, communicating with everybody on the same level and not having any preconceived ideas with whoever you're speaking to. So it's a pretty high level of consciousness we're talking about, but if you're certainly open to it, this can certainly change. The more people that enter into that type of consciousness, however long you can stay in there, this is going to bring, for all of us globally, this north nodes of destiny to a much higher level with regards to compassion. Compassion for all, but especially compassion for ourselves, right? Now Saturn will be squaring Neptune sextiles, but Saturn will be squaring this. So Saturn goes back to the traditional, right? So it goes back to the more 3D type things with regards to where should we be going next as part of mankind. So again, I'm talking about more mundane type aspects. And so this is those in charge, those who've been telling us what to do, saying that we must continue doing it this way, the traditional ways. Whereas the Neptune sextile is saying, look, I'm trying to give you some opportunities here to really do things a lot better. It's not going to be more difficult to do it. It just means that more people will benefit. And this may also be tied into, with regards to our earth, literally, right? Our farming practices, and by extension, anything to do with our water as well, where we're going to be given some opportunities to clean things up. And I think we must take them. But we're going to have some resistance from those that are kind of ruling the traditional ways we've been doing things. All right. Next, I'm going to be covering each of the sun signs and ascendants. My preference is for you to actually read for your ascendant if you can only read or listen to one. This is going to give you the area of your life that's going to be affected by the new moons and the full moons and then any other aspects that are happening in March. Right, so before I go on to go into your individual signs or ascendants, this is my first attempt at doing monthly videos by sign and posting them by sign so they can be more specific and individual to each of you. I'd be interested to hear your comments if you have any. Certainly if you feel that you like this format, I'd like to hear that too. Always open to suggestions. And I hope this is going to be of benefit to everybody. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of preparation, but it's been a lot of fun too. And I plan to continue this and maybe even offer new things to my subscribers and viewers. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful March. So Scorpio, this new moon in Pisces is in your 5th house. And of course, don't forget that Pisces is a water sign just like you, so it's forming lovely trine energy, which is favorable energy. The only negative thing about trine energy is that it can go by without much notice because it's just so easy and so wonderful. So this actually is speaking to your 5th house. Lovely house to have a new moon in, Scorpio. This is you being creative in music, dance, poetry. Any of these areas are going to be super favorable for you. It's going to give you this creative, spiritual type of energy. Maybe you're going to start a new project with regards to dance or music. You're going to have so much luck on your side too, with Jupiter standing close by. Now, Jupiter standing close by can also mean an expert of some sort. So maybe there's someone who's guiding you with regards to music or dance. That's going to be a big benefit for you to put maybe some kind of real creative project together that really just feels right for you, that really helps you express yourself. Because of course the 5th house is your authentic self. It asks you to express your authentic self. So if you are putting together a creative project of some sort, Scorpio, going to have the advisors there that are going to give you good advice, and you're going to have this lovely energy that's going to help this project come together in a most beautiful way. Now, 5th house is also children, so there could be some kind of positive benefit with regards to children. Perhaps they will assist you with regards to you expressing your authentic self. That could come in here too. It's also the area of starting your own business. So certainly for those Scorpios that want to start your own business, this new moon would be awesome. Lucky time to start a new business. So I would highly recommend that. When we look at that Mars conjunct Venus at 0 degrees of Aquarius that I spoke about in my introduction, I wanted to mention that this is in your 4th house of home. So I saw this, if you are looking for a home and haven't been able to find one, I really saw this as a potential time when unexpectedly you get this new home materializing for you. So for those Scorpios who are looking for something like that, this would be an awesome time for this to come in for you. But certainly you're going to want gadgets in the home. There's going to be some kind of electronic type activity in the home that's emphasized with that whole Venus conjunct Mars at 0 degrees of Aquarius. But this also is going to set off something, a long-term cycle, a 20-year cycle in your home as well. So there may be some real focus in your home here that lasts a lot longer than March. Maybe you're going to set up some kind of business. Maybe that whole new moon that I just spoke about in your 5th house, you set up your own business that has some kind of electronic communications incorporated in it, and you're going to do it from your home. That's exciting. At the end of the month, or rather the sort of towards the end of the month, mid-month, we have that full moon in Virgo in your 11th house. Now this sextiles your sign, so this is opportunities coming from friends and the groups that you belong to. Now it is a full moon, and sometimes what happens in the 11th house when you've got a full moon, friends just leave. They leave your life, or groups that you belong to dissolve. That can happen as well, especially since we've got Neptune at this time opposite the moon, but conjunct the sun. So I would say that if friends do leave your life, let them go. If groups dissolve, this is meaningful for you from the standpoint of it's good they're dissolving because they're no longer part of your destiny path. You might be let down by a friend at this time. Don't be alarmed by it. It's just the universe telling you, giving you a tap on the back that maybe you need to pay attention here. So at the end of the month, we have the new moon in the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, and this falls in your 6th house. I saw this as some kind of new, exciting job opportunity coming in for you. Or say you stay in the job that you do day to day, but somehow there's some new excitement that's put in the mix that really has you feeling great about going to your job day to day. You may, though, be required to take the initiative here. You know, Aries is all about, I'm taking the initiative here. I'm pioneering a new path. It's my way. That's the way I want to do it. So it may mean that you have to take the initiative here. So pay attention to, if you are looking to change up your job in the job that you're in, I just get this intuitive hit that make sure you're watching the internal job postings and apply for them. Take the initiative if that's a new job that you want in the job that you're currently in. The other thing too, of course, is the 6th house is the house of health. So you may have some kind of new beginning with regards to a health regimen. You may decide to start a new exercise program and or a nutrition program. All this would be very favorable, especially if it's in some kind of new area. Aries being new starts and something that's outside the box as we know it. I also wanted to mention to you, just to give you a heads up, Scorpio, because of course you're hosting the south nodes, transiting south nodes of the moon in your sign. You have a big eclipse coming up. So our first new moon total eclipse is going to be in your sign, Scorpio. It'll be mid-May. And so I would say that you really should be paying attention to the month of May, maybe June as well, with regards to some big change. Now, when we look at the nodes being in your sign, the south nodes being in your sign, we're really speaking more about letting stuff go. So I would say that at this total eclipse in Scorpio mid-May, I'm just giving you the heads up that it may mean that you'll need to let go of something that you maybe have defaulted to, or that you've taken for granted, or that you just keep going to and keep doing. So I'm giving you in March the idea that maybe think through some things that you can easily maybe change up into something newer that needs to go out of your life. It'll be, because it's Scorpio related, it could be any aspect of your life. But typically when we're talking about Scorpio, we're talking about the psychological self, right? Are there any things that you're obsessing or possessing that maybe you need to ease off a little bit? Think about that now before the total eclipse comes up in mid-May, so that that time period is just easier for you to handle. Take care, Scorpio. So that's my wrap up for March 2022. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. It is a new format that I'm using. I would be delighted to hear any comments or suggestions that you have. I hope everyone has benefited from being able to listen more specifically to their individual sign and or ascendant. I've had a lot of fun putting this together and plan to continue, but I'd love to hear from you, and your comments are always welcome. Have a wonderful March. We are springing into spring and then on to summer. Looking forward to it. Sending everybody lots of love. Bye for now.